equipping local advocates who are both knowledge vessels and knowledge sharers in their community in order to combat the sources of disadvantage in their community. The way this model works is that CWF comes into a relationship with the community through networks of our partners. And as we get to know people in the community, there's an opportunity to understand the situation in the community and talk with people about what's happening in the community and how their lives are ordered. And during these conversations, there are certain people in the community who start to understand that there are opportunities within their community to improve livelihoods. And these people begin to step forward and be really interested in engaging further. And these are the people who become advocates. Once they step forward and are interested in becoming advocates, then there's an opportunity for them to go through a series of training. And the training is designed based on the needs in the community. Now, these advocates, as they are becoming knowledge vessels, with the idea of becoming knowledge sharers, a lot of them are not actually highly educated people. When we're talking about people in rural villages in China, many of them may have completed a primary school education. So just because you give them knowledge doesn't mean that they're ready or feel equipped to be able to share that and to improve the situation in their village. So the next step in the process is that there are a series of organized knowledge sharing events. We call them knowledge promotion activities. And these are designed with a lesson and also in such a way that the people who are advocates can receive feedback about how they're sharing knowledge and how they're working with the people in their community. And over time, they gain confidence, and suddenly they become true knowledge sharers, so that when needs come up in the community, perhaps they're in the village doing farm work next to their neighbors, or someone in the village has a child who has a health issue. Now these people are naturally ready to respond. So working with this program has given me an idea of two distinct modes of service that I'd like to talk about. The first is transactional service, and the second is responsive service. Now, transactional service is more about what the advocates are doing in the knowledge promotion activity. The advocates have some knowledge that they want to share. It's knowledge that they know will benefit the community. And so they organize an event that is a transaction. They have something to give, the community members have something to receive. The second type of service, responsive service, is more what happens in the long run. As the advocates become confident in their ability to understand the knowledge and share it, they respond to needs as they come up. And they start to equip other people in the village in these areas of knowledge. I'd like to use another story to illustrate this idea. In the New Testament in the Bible, there's a story where Jesus is walking around. And he's walking around with his students, called disciples. And as he's walking around, there are people who come to him with their needs. And so he starts teaching. And some of the people, their needs are health issues. They need to be cured. Perhaps they have sickness. Perhaps they have injury. And so Jesus is responding to those needs, and he's dealing with those needs. Now, as the day goes on, his disciples come up and say, hey, you know, Jesus, we're getting hungry. Let's go get some food. Send these people away. And Jesus is like, oh, no, we can deal with this. These people still have needs. We can continue to work on this. And so he says, okay, what's here? And the disciples are like, hey, there's more than 5,000 people here. What can we do? And they say, well, you know, there's 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish. And the disciples think this is just ridiculous. And this is a key point here. Jesus, the person who records the story in the New Testament, treats Jesus as God. Why doesn't Jesus just have food here? But instead what Jesus does is he looks at these 5 loaves and 2 fish. He looks at the resources that are already in the crowd, already in the community. And he looks at his disciples, who are the people he's trying to equip to do service in the future. And he says, hey, we can handle this. He blesses the food. He tells the disciples, start organizing the people into groups of 50 and start distributing the food. And as they distribute the food, the disciples see how the resources that are present within the community can be multiplied to serve the needs of the entire community. They also learn about how to organize people and how to distribute resources and collect resources. This story also illustrates both types of service. There's responsive service that Jesus is doing within his capacity to serve people. As needs come up, he serves them. But there's also a transactional service event going on. People are being fed, and through that transactional service, the people receiving really a short-term benefit. It's not going to, by dinner time that night, they're going to be hungry again. But through that event, the disciples are being equipped to become and do responsive service in the future. I think transactional service has a really bad reputation. And if we think about philanthropy in general, there's a lot of emphasis on the kind of sense of limited resources in the world. We look at the movement of the 99%, and the 99% are looking at the 1% and saying, hey, you guys have so much you need to be doing over here, and helping these other people with what you've got. And our transactional service mindset is often similar. I have so much that I should give back. It's a transaction. I have, I give, and someone receives. And when people are doing transactional service, it's often done in such a way that it's just a matter of showing up. I show up, someone tells me what to do, I do it, and I go away. Perhaps the reason that I show up is because I have some sort of weight or burden of moral obligation that is causing me to feel like I need to do something for people. But that's not really always helpful. And just showing up is really not enough. Transactional service can be done in such a way that really adds benefit. But our focus is usually looking at some sort of impact to the people we're serving. Now, transactional service sometimes has minimal impact or can even have negative impact, as people don't really understand what they're doing and they do things that actually hurt communities. And sometimes people walk away from a transactional service and they feel great joy because that burden of moral obligation has been lifted, at least for a short time. Some people who are more reflective walk away and they say, wow, I didn't really honestly make that big of a difference. And was it really worth the investment of my time and resources to participate in that event and to do that act of service? I think we need to reframe what transactional service is. And transactional service should be done in such a way that it provides a benefit. But we shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking that our transactional service is what's creating some sort of long-term positive effect in the community. What we should focus on is how transactional service is equipping both ourselves and people in the community to do responsive service. So while we need to make sure that our transactional service is not causing harm, we need to design and prepare the expectations of our transactional service in such a way that it's equipping people to be better servants in the future. We see there's a lot of problems in the world. And the world needs people who can respond to those problems in a natural way. That when something comes up in their community, they are able to respond and meet that need immediately. But most of us are not natural responders. Like the disciples who say, hey, there's no way we can feed these people. Or like the advocates who have very low education level. And they're like, okay, now I've been trained in this stuff, but what do? I don't know how to teach anyone. Nobody's going to listen to me. People who are natural responders, they don't need to just show up. They need to have skills in analysis. They need to be able to look at a situation, understand the resources that are present, understand the people that are present, understand how those can be placed together in such a way to meet a need. They need to have patience. They need to have organizational skills as they look at how resources are distributed and how people can be placed in order for action to be made. It's not about, I can cook the rice that somebody needs to survive. It's about how can we create more and more people who can cook rice. And it all needs to also be done and founded in a sense of humility that actually maybe I don't know all the answers. And maybe I should listen to people's feedback about how to serve better. If we can design our transactional service in a way that people are understanding how they are being equipped through the event, suddenly transactional service becomes very high impact. And it becomes high impact because you're growing people both in the community being served who are understanding empathy and understanding people coming in and looking at the world from their perspective, from the people doing the transactional service who are experiencing empathy on the other side, how they can walk in the shoes of these people and start to understand what the world looks like from their place. And in the end, you have powerful servants in the world. Last year, we were visiting a village in Western China, and we were talking with a third-grade girl who had been trained as an advocate in her school for health education. And so we were asking her about what it was like to be an advocate, what she thought about being an advocate. And she said, I want to be an advocate for the rest of my life. That is what is powerful. That is what will change the world. People who are willing to look at resources, look at them not from a vantage point of scarcity, but look at it from a vantage point of multiplication, of equipping, and not out of a sense of moral obligation, but because this is just what we do. This is our identity. We are trained for responsive service.